Welcome to Small Arm Solutions. Today we're going to be looking at some really neat rifles. FN did something I think very, very special here. It's something that I think has been long overdue. You know, we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers return from Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, not to mention other locations throughout the world. And they've always had the request or the desire to be able to get a direct copy of the gun that they carry overseas or carry in the military. And no one's really ever really fed that. You know, for instance, the M16A4 and the M4, you can build ones that look just like it. You can, by buying the separate components, you can do that. Very expensive. If you're not really into it, it can be harder for you to do. FNMI has been manufacturing M16A2 and A4, A3 rifles since the mid 80s. They have been a very reliable, very excellent manufacturer for the U.S. government, making mil-spec M16 rifles. More recently, they've won contracts to build the M4 carbines as well. And they had decided that they wanted to provide what they want to call their military collector series rifle, which basically are exact replicas of what they produce for the U.S. government in the M16A4 and the M4 carbine rifles. Now, it gets a little bit tricky too, because FN is a U.S. government contractor. They are provided the technical data package for the M16A4, A3, A2, and M4s for U.S. government use only. So they're not able to use that data to manufacture commercial rifles. That would be against their contract versus thus illegal. So the FN military rifles are all manufactured in their South Carolina facility under FNMI. FN has a commercial division out of Fredericksburg, Virginia, where they manufacture numerous products as well, including the new FN military rifles. These are manufactured completely separate of the U.S. government guns because they can't be. However, they have offered an extremely close version of the M16A4 and M4 carbines for the U.S. commercial market. The first one we're going to look at is their version of the M4 carbine. As you can see, this looks identical to a current M4 carbine. Has a 16-inch barrel on it. We're looking from the back. You see a standard mil-spec type telescopic stock. On the right side of the receiver, you notice that we have the Matek backup sight. The selector lever is ambidextrous. This came out of the M4A1 product improvement. On the product improvement, they added ambidextrous safeties. They also added ambidextrous magazine releases. This does not have that though, but it does have the ambidextrous safety. And also, if you notice, we have a Uid label. These are placed on every U.S. military weapon. Well, most U.S. government property has a UID on it, but it has a manufacturer's cage code, the part number, the serial number, and it also has this barcode here where if you were to hit it with your smartphone, the information would pop up on FN's website. And also, as you'll see, it has the Knight's M4 RAS system, which as of this day is still issue, even though they're supposed to be replacing it as part of the M4 product improvement also. This does come also with the Knight's Armament broom handle also. My Teeny did not come with that, but the actual rifle does. It'll come with a broom handle on there. You'll see all the Knight's Armament clips. These are actual Knight Armament grip panels and rail. This is not the current U.S. military production, which was a lower bidder who's making them right now. This is the actual Knights. You will see that you have the sling swivel that the M4 has as well. Now, the front sight base on here is the correct F-marked front sight base, which is utilized on the M4 carbine. We're going to take a look at some of the receivers right now. One of the areas where this rifle does differentiate is in the way some of the parts are marked. But another special feature of this rifle here is if you look at the way that it's actually labeled. It has the FN, the football type sign, rather than having the traditional FN on it. And it says FN-15 carbine, which is exactly what it is. Manufactured in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Looking at the marks on it also, it says Safe Fire Auto. This is not an automatic weapon. It is an actual semi-automatic only, but they put that on there for more the authenticity. For the M4 carbine, this would be accurate now. Well, it would be safe semi, not fire, but Auto would be correct because they got rid of the burst. So where it does differentiate is the actual barrels themselves and the markings on them. Again, due to these parts not being able to come out of the FN military inventory, you will not have the F-marked forging code on here. On the barrel, instead of it saying FNMI 5.56 1/7 NATO, it's marked just with the cage code MP 556 NATO 1/7. It's not the actual military markings. And the other place where you would expect to see military markings would be the actual bolt and carrier. Normally an FN rifle would have FN on the side here, and the bolt would actually be marked FNP. There's a marking on here for being magnetic particle and proof tested, but it's not those. That's the only place this really differentiates between the actual U.S. government guns and this rifle here. But the way this comes to you, for anybody who would serve with a standard M4, this is it. It's the exact configuration that you would have carried. It's all available in a one-shot stop. The M4 was the most widely distributed rifle for all of the ground elements, over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the next rifle we're going to talk about is the same version rifle, but the M16A4 version. If you were a Marine, this would have been very well what you would have carried. The Army had limited use of the M16A4s. The Army has gone basically full fleet over to the M4s, which is what you would find overseas. You still see the U.S. bases here, and some other bases you'll still see, M16A2s and A4s available. But looking at this rifle, this is the exact configuration that the rifles would leave FN to go to Anderson Army Depot for U.S. military weapons. You have your standard A2 length stock. The lower receiver is the exact same markings and everything as you would have on the carbine. You have the UID code as well with the cage code and the part number and the serial number. This here you also have the Hemi Selector Arm, which I don't believe I've ever seen a U.S. government A4 with a Hemi Selector, but that could have changed also. The Maytech backup sight. And here you have the M5 RAS, which is again U.S. military. They give you the full set of rail panels, as well as the Broom handle, nice armament. Your front sight base is the proper F-mark front sight base, where a lot of companies don't do that. A lot of companies, whether they don't know or understand what an F-mark front sight base is, the F-mark front sight base sits up slightly higher, so when you have the higher rail with your backup sight, the sights actually line up properly. What a lot of companies will do is they'll stick with a standard front sight base, and they would basically just increase the length of the front sight post. So if you don't have one that's if you have a non-marked front sight front sight base with a rail-mounted backup sight, you may have to have your front sight post up so high that it's actually coming out of the front sight tower. We've seen that on many occasions. Now the barrel on here is also marked differently. It's marked the same way that FN does their commercial barrels, where you'll have the stylized FN symbol, and it says BMP 556 NATO 1/7. Now these barrels are not hammer forged. As per true mill spec, they're going to be button cut, chrome lined, 1-turn 7 twist barrels. So again, I think this was something that was really in demand. I can give you a little story from my days at Colt. I can recall in 2008 when I first started working at Colt, I sat in Dennis Bayou's office and I made a recommendation to him that we should do some commercial rifles that were basically M4 and M16A4 commemoratives, which we would basically put in the exact same configuration that we shipped the guns to the U.S. military, but in the 16-inch in the semi-automatic only, in the same packaging, the same blue wrap with the 7 magazines, the U.S. military manual, and the same box. I had recommended that in 2008. It wasn't something a direction that they chose to go. But it's funny what FN ended up coming up with was the same idea that I had for Colt many years ago. I anticipate this being a very good seller for FN because, as I said, they did a beautiful job on it, and they're filling a niche for a lot of returning servicemen who really want to get the exact same gun that they carried. These rifles are currently available. They were introduced at SHOT Show in 2016. Look at any your local dealers. You should be able to find them. I imagine with the current political climate, you're going to see even more of a demand for them. We're not going to shoot these because there's not really any point between my back brace and the fact these are standard M16 and M4 carbines. There's nothing out of the ordinary with the way that they shoot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click on like and please subscribe. Thank you very much.